Okay, suppose you have a problem that asks you to order the following numbers from least to greatest. You have 103, you have 2.3, you have 0.04, you have 0.50, and you have the number 2. Okay. So in order to be able to order them from least to greatest, we must follow these two steps. We must align the numbers by place value or by keeping the decimal in the middle. And let me do that. So then if we'd align the numbers by place value, then I'd put 1.03, and then I'd follow it with 2, and then the decimal, I would keep it right here in the middle, 0.3, and then 0.04, and then I'd follow it with 0.50, and then last but not least, 2. The reason I don't include a decimal of the 2 is because whenever you have a whole number, it's implied or imagined that there's an imaginary 0 after the decimal. So this would be where the decimal on this 2 is. Okay, so that's a very important thing actually to keep in mind. When you have a whole number, the decimal is still there, but what happens is it's an imaginary decimal. Okay, and when we're aligning the decimals like this, then we have to add in that decimal after the whole number. Okay, so we've already aligned the numbers by place value. Okay, the second step is to add zeros to the empty spaces. What does that mean? Okay, well, when we see a problem, okay, we see that there is, when we align the numbers, rather, we see that there's an empty space here. There's 2 empty spaces there, right? There's an empty space there, and there's an empty space there. Okay, so what we do is we add zeros to the empty spaces. So we're going to add a 0 right there, and we're going to add 2 zeros right over here. Okay, the reason why I don't like to add zeros here is because of what I'm going to explain in a minute. But just for future reference, if you don't really have to add zeros to when you're ordering actually decimals, you don't have to add zeros to the left of the decimal if there's no other number. You can just keep it like it is. Okay, so let's turn over to here. Okay, so we've already added zeros to the empty spaces, and then after we do this, then we imagine all numbers as if they didn't have this decimal. So this decimal would become 103, this one would become 230, this one would become 04 or just 4 by itself, right? Because we don't really say, oh, I have $4. We just say, you know, I have $4. This would become 50, okay, and this would become 200. Okay, so after you get these values like so, I'm going to put it right here. After you get these values like so, then you start checking which one is the least, right? Because we're organizing them from least to greatest, right? So let's start with the smallest number. The smallest number in this number series would be this 4, right? So remember that this 4 was originally 0.04, so we would write 0.04. Okay, and then after this one, the smallest number in this series would be 50, right? And also remember that it was originally written as 0.50. Okay, so we're done with these two. I like to scratch them off just so I don't get confused. Okay, and then following 50, we have 103, right? So we write down as it was 1.03. Okay, so we're done with excuse me, we're done with this one. And then afterwards, after this one, we have 200, right? So remember that originally it was written just the 2, just the 2 by itself. So we write down the 2. And then last, but not least, is 230. And remember it was written originally as 2.3. So that's the number we write down as we're writing them from least to greatest. Okay. If we were writing them from greatest to least, then we would do the opposite of this. We would write down the 2.3 first, then the 2, then the 1.03, and then so on and so forth. Okay? But we're not. So the answer is 1. This one. And that's how you arrange decimals from least to greatest.